One, two, three, four. One, two, three. What's up, people? What's up? Look like I'm having a little difficulty myself. I'm feeling a little under the weather with all of this craziness. Me trying to kill myself, it seems. Being a superhero, flying down the streets on motorcycles and things like that. So I hear y'all. I see y'all. I see a couple people coming in. What's happening? How you doing? I'm trying to get in here. Yeah, I'm running a little tardy myself. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? I know you don't hear my music. You don't think I'm here, but I'm here. I'm here. So, what I'm doing is doing what I do when I do what I do. Hey, Beverly, what's going on, babe? How you feeling? I hope all is well. You're first out the gate tonight, huh? I was going to change it up a little bit. Hey, Gwen, how's it going, babe? I'm sitting over here, I'm sweating like a mule, man. Anyway, folks, what's happening? A lot of, I figured everybody be in simply because they've heard all about what's going on. Everybody's got this thing that they're dealing with. What's going on, Miss Crawford? My panky. Oh, you know it wouldn't be right if I didn't express myself. So I just needed a little bit of that. Oh, hey Mary, how you doing? How you doing? We got guests in the house tonight. Maybe I'll behave myself. Chances are I won't, but you know, it sounds good in theory. Me behaving? Yeah, highly unlikely. So what's up, baby? Express yourself. Whatever you do. You know I gotta have my little musical interlude to get hype. This is how we do this here. Whatever you do, Lord. Do it good. It's not what you look like when you're doing what you're doing. It's what you're doing when you're doing what you look like you're doing. Express yourself. Express yourself. You're doing it on the moon, folks. In the jungle too. Everybody on the floor now. This is the part, you know, after the horn part I can run. So let the horns do the thing they do. Spaghetti-da-da-da. Spaghetti-da-da. Spaghetti-da-da-da. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Shake-a-da-da-da-da. Listen to that drummer now. Drummer was funky too now. So folks, I'm going to go ahead and get started. What's up, Alphonse? How's it going, Sasha? Nice to see you folks in the house. I figured everybody would be here, seeing as though y'all ain't got nothing else to do. Everybody's on quarantine. Y'all probably got a little cabin fever and looking for something to do. I guess everybody done binge watch everything from Game of Thrones to Breaking Bad, and I don't know what else you folks are into tonight. But anyway, I want to say good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm just kind of focusing on a couple of things tonight. I've just been kind of recuperating myself, but you know, you folks know I was playing motorbike superhero or some nonsense and crashed the motorbike into the side of a truck. And I'm too old to be doing wheelies and all of that, but that puppy got away from me. Anyway, With that being said, again, I want to welcome everybody to the show tonight. I hope everybody's doing well and can make some sense of this thing, this impending pandemic, and it has something to do with the message tonight. I'd be remiss if I ignored it. So, as you know, I'm a history buff. I try to paint pictures of how history repeats itself. I do this because history also provides a case study of how we handled the problem back then. If we ignore it, shame on us when we see it again. Tonight, I'm going to give you a case study of what I call hate and opportunistic presidential politics that exploit fear and disasters. So, tonight's podcast is titled Panic-demic and Fear Politics. Shaping the narrative. One of the first shows I did was talking about the power of shaping the narrative. Words can be used to elicit pride or to incite a riot. For example, I can focus on things that we have in common. I could say, hey, looks like we're going to go to the playoffs today, this year, maybe even the Super Bowl. And everybody that identify as a fan of that team suddenly has something in common in the shared camaraderie. By the same token, when a hate group stirs the pot of fear and says the reason you're not working or I'm not working is because the Mexicans or the black is taking all of our jobs, then everybody who is somewhat miserable and looking for something to belong to signs up and signs in. And they start repeating this rhetoric without researching it to see if there's any truth to it. Truth be told, neither the fan nor a worker has any power in deciding who's hired, who plays from week to week, or in the case of a company or factory, whether that factory stays open, whether they cut back, or whether they move to another area. This illustrates just how angry words can make us. This also illustrates how these words can make us feel, and this is what we mean when we talk about shaping the narrative. So let's go a step further and explore how words have shaped our politics and divided us and brought us to where we are now. I try to break it down to three things, three narratives that I think has shaped us for at least the last decade and probably will going into the next, we've been in this millennium for 20 years now. Now we're starting to see the pendulum swing to the right or the wrong. Hate is fueled by fear. Fear is fueled by possible harm or debt. And fear is also fueled by loss of status. Still with the first. If I tell you that your daughter is not safe with the guys down the block, you start to build an emotional case to dislike the guys and every guy that reminds you of them. When we think about possible bodily harm or death, a perfect example is the coronavirus. Suddenly everybody's quarantined by this boogeyman virus with an astonishing 3% mortality rate. None of us are epidemiologists, but let me just kind of put it into perspective. 3%. When we talk about, let's just say that let's make it nice and simple, that there's 3 billion people in the world and 150,000 cases of this. 3% of that would probably be 5,000 people. So if this thing has infected 150,000 people and only 5,000 of those died, not to discount the 5,000 that died, but that's not something that should have us in a state of panic that we are in now. Because what's probably going to happen at some point is as this panic starts to rise, we start off being nice, but then we'll get to a point where we'll start to look at each other and we start to take advantage of each other and exploit, and it's already starting to happen. So let's just move on. The last is what I call Loss of status. That's what white privilege is. If we, in a so-called ruling class, cannot compete, our status is threatened. So we stoke the fear of those who, like ourselves, have nothing but the privilege of the status quo. By doing that, we kind of reassert our power as the ruling class. Right or wrong. Fear that is fueled by hate. Every parent wants to raise their children in a safe environment. This goes double for a father and his daughter. To most fathers, no man is good enough to take his daughter's virtue. Two things no man wants to imagine is some young man doing to his daughter what he regularly does to his daughter's mother. That, my friend, is true karma. I know I became a different man once I started to have daughters, because suddenly I thought about how I wanted a man to treat my daughter, and I started treating women differently. And I know I'm hard on women, but I feel like women are the strongest of the sexes, and if you repeat it, I emphatically deny it. I don't know what's in me tonight. Maybe I have a fever or something. But most men would submit to a life sentence to exact what I call a revenge of biblical proportions to any man who forcefully takes his daughter or his family for that matter, but especially his daughter's virtue. Fear of bodily harm or death, that's where we are now. They have us wrapped up in this whole coronavirus. Every man, woman, and child is born to die. Let's be real. Truth be told, we start dying when we take the first breath immediately from our mother's womb. But words can be used to exploit us into taking medicines prematurely, or defying common sense and stocking up on hand sanitizer and toilet tissue. Really? I have yet to hear one person say, I washed my hands, but I got the coronavirus because I didn't have hand sanitizer. Or better still, I'm safe from corona now because I only use hand sanitizer after I use the toilet. Now cyber pirates have a new avenue to get your data. They'll send you a link that says everything you need to know about the coronavirus. You click on that link and you're a sitting duck. You wind up inadvertently uploading all of this malware, Trojan horses, etc., to your computer, and all of your contacts are also compromised. Loss of status. I love this country. That's why I served in the Marine Corps, and that's why I continue to fight for people that don't necessarily share my way of thinking or my views, because you're entitled to your own opinion. But we have to learn more about tolerance. We have to know about, I deserve the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I have the same God inalienable right that you have. So if we have a difference of opinion, be it historical, be it biblical, etc., religious, otherwise, we have to learn how to, as Rodney King said, just get along. So we have to put that aside. This double hypocrisy of America was brought upon in the infancy of the country by our founding fathers. Our founding fathers sought to be free, yet they enslaved Africans and decimated a whole country full of Indians. Then they decided that these Indians should be referred to as Native Americans, one name to describe all of the fallen tribes. Really? Yes, I have some Indian blood too, me and Elizabeth Warren, but that's beside the point. Since then, many have tried to right the hypocritical wrong by treating everyone by the content of their character and extent of their talent. That should define how far a man or a woman goes. But some still use white privilege as a fear to call of arms, as a call of arms, every time they lose a skirmish in life or they fail at their mediocre undertaker. Mediocrity has become the norm. And anybody that subscribes to being more than that, you think you're better than me, etc., 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 we have to eradicate you so that I don't have to try so hard. And we see this a lot, especially with our younger kids. Once upon a time, our old folks were, their experiences were valued. But nowadays, young folks would rather reinvent the wheel, and who cares whether it rolls or not. When we start to look at some of the presidents and how they use this hypocrisy, I'm from New Orleans. Andrew Jackson was supposed to be the hero of the Battle of New Orleans. But rumor has it he attacked after peace was declared. That's like knocking somebody out after the bell sounds and still being rewarded the heavyweight champ. It's not cool. It's not right. As we move into modern day, we can go back to George H.W. Now, you know, I have much respect for George H.W. Bush because I had a chance to meet and talk to him. And he was so different than what I thought he would be. And it was one of the things that taught me to start making up my own mind and giving people a chance instead of saying, you know, what people say about this person is what I should receive as the gospel. No. But the person that was behind George H.W. Bush was a man by the name of Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater was what we call the modern day architect of the fear politics. Lee Atwater used fear to catapult George H.W. Bush into the White House by saying that Michael Dukakis was soft on crime because someone he pardoned went out and raped and killed someone. And as a result of that fear, George H.W. Bush went on to the White House. Every Democrat felt like it was dirty pool or dirty politics. But now we see that it's just so commonplace, everybody does it. And part of that is because we see how things go on. In 1988, I left Charity Hospital. I was in the top of my radiology class. I transferred to Howard University. I was studying, was getting a bachelor's in radiology with a focus on business. When I transferred there, shortly thereafter, we learned, the student body learned that Lee Atwater was on the board of directors. President Cheeks, Howard University, was a staunch Republican and said he could appoint whomsoever he chose to. And rumor has it, and I tried to look this up, that this board of directors assignment was to the tune of like $330,000. So we, the student body, took over the administration with the chance of no justice, no peace. Cheek said that he was staying firm and that he wouldn't back off. Eventually, Atwater resigned. So we thought we won. Atwater had a protege that he brought along, Karl Rove. Ironically, Karl Rove was the architect of putting George W. Bush into office with some of the same fear politics or the same game plan that his mentor, Lee Atwater, used. Then a young senator from Illinois gave this rousing keynote address at the Democratic National Convention in 2004. And though he was a long shot, in 2008, he was elected president of the United States. His name was Barack Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. That move Obama becoming the first black president, it awakened a sleeping beast called fear again. And it wasn't just in the Republican Party. There were some Democrats that opposed him as well. Barack's two terms not only shook the opposition, his two-term presidency steered the hypocrisies in the Democratic Party. Though unspoken publicly, women started saying it was time for a woman to become president, because that's always been the natural progression. With so-called affirmative action, it was a black man, then there was a white woman, then black women. So they thought that was the logical progression. Hence, Hillary, and we know how that ended up. Trump and his renewed hate groups. I could tell you what these groups are, but I refuse to give them any airtime or press time on my podcast. So look them up for yourself. But he has what I call a myriad of white supremacist groups. And it's alarming how many of these groups there are and how thoroughly they're interwoven into the fabric that is our society. But anything that has to do with black love, and the difference between black love and white love, black love, I don't have to hate you to love myself. With white love, I have to love me and hate everything else that isn't white, Anglo-Saxon, blah. Okay? Initially, we were tolerant of Trump because we had heard all of this rhetoric before. In 2016, we actually heard some of the same argument and privilege from both candidates. So some of us tried to pick the lesser of two evils. And as I said before, it's not that so many voted for Trump. It's just that a lot of white females voted against Hillary. And therein lies the irony. Truth be told, we cannot tell people to be logical when their emotional heartstrings are pulled or they're emotionally moved. So we collectively fight rhetoric with rhetoric or fire with fire to shape a narrative. Some of us eventually get it. Others latch onto a soundbite and claim it to be the gospel and repeat it like a parrot. Polly wants a cracker. Polly likes a cracker, whatever. Still others get frustrated. They abandon the message altogether and they choose not to vote. In the 2016 election, that was to the tune of 46% of registered voters. So many of my friends and family have strong religious ties, including me. I was raised in the church, but I'm a little bit different. I have just as much Malcolm as I have Martin. I have just as much Thurgood Marshall as I have Martin. And I'm going to tell you something I rarely tell people. While at the Naval Hospital in Bethesda, I had a chance to meet Thurgood Marshall, and he was one of my heroes growing up. So when I would get the call that we had a VIP coming in, I carried on some of the things that my grandfather and my dad and the Marine Corps taught me. I kept a nice, crisp, white cotton starch lab coat with all my insignia and my credentials on it because I had worked hard for it. And this was for my mom, my dad, and my grandparents. So I put this on and I went out and I said, Mr. Marshall, my name is Henry Batiste. I'm the radiology manager here at National Naval Medical Center. I'm going to be taking care of you today, sir. But on behalf of those that never had an opportunity and my parents, I want to say I'm here today because of you and your efforts. And he says, what's your name, son? I said, my name is Henry Batiste, but you could call me Hank. He said, no, I'm going to call you Mr. Batiste. I said, no, sir. He says, son, I'm going to call you Mr. Batiste because you earned it. Now sit down because you talk too much. Honest. And I sit there and he started telling me this. And at this point, it's kind of a thing because it was made public afterwards. But we were evaluating him for a small bowel obstruction. So I know that he was in pain, so I tried to move it along. And I said, Mr. Honorable Justice, I don't know what to call you, sir, because now I'm intimidated because you tell me I've talked too much. I said, can I go ahead and get you done? Because you look like you're in pain. He said, no. He said, that's just too much bourbon and fried chicken. And I just look at him and said, yes, sir. So I listened to what he had to say. And what he said, son, there's nothing special about me. He said, I am here because I had a job to do, and I did the job. I just did the best that I could with what I had. So every time I heard him say thereafter, I said it was because of our chance interaction that he keyed this phrase. So I took credit for it, and I'm taking credit today. But I said all of that to say this. God is still in control, but God is just not about laying down. God sends you many messages, and you choose to listen or not. I believe God sends us messages on a daily basis. Maybe this is one, I don't know. When I look at the occurrences of the past couple of years, I feel like the old sermon of the devout Christian lady facing an impending storm. People kept coming by to warn her that there was a flood, but she said, oh, honey, God will provide. After she perished in the storm, she went to heaven, and she angrily asked God, well, why did you allow me to die? God replied, I sent 3 people telling you to get out. You ignored all 3. Some of us know so much that we refuse to see the obvious. Some of us are motivated by envy or jealousy or whatever. I knew him when he was this, or this person has this kind of sense of humor, so how can he be this, that, and the other? We're all multifaceted individuals. So, are there hypocrisies? Of course there are. Let's ignore the distractions of all the things that's going on now. Let's create opportunities that keeps us from being confused, and let's change the obvious message to something that's coherent, something that's lucid, something that makes sense. Let's come together to make an obvious choice to end this hate-monger's reign. In closing, I just want to say this. Even after trimming my Facebook friends, I have over 1,100 Facebook friends still. Yet I cannot get 200 of you people to go to my YouTube channel, check it out, leave some comments, and subscribe. Really? Be that as it may, I'm going to be here. I don't do this for likes. I don't do this for any other reason other than I feel compelled. I feel compelled to deliver a message week in and week out and help you make some sense of some of this rhetorical noise that we're bombarded with. Prove me wrong, people. Share my message with someone. Gwen, I see you brought your sister in. So I see some people inviting other people, and that's what, it's not that I'm trying to be all of this. It's just I feel that we get so much bad information, so much of the narrative is just angry rhetoric that we need someone to break through the jargon and help us. Give us some tunnel vision so things make sense. And that's what I aim to do week in, week out. Prove me wrong. Share my message. Go to my YouTube channel, subscribe. Leave some comments. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't like. I'm going to be here as long as I got something to say. So it must be true. I'll see you next week. Same Baptiste time. Same Baptiste channel. Good night, people. I'm not calling out anybody. Some people didn't like the name to get called out. Other people said, well, I was there. Why didn't you call out my name? And I felt like the little kid watching, what was it, Romper Rum? And every week, Miss Linda would call out these names. I see Bobby, and I see Timmy, and I'm like, why she never call my name? So out of respect, everybody that shows up, you're just as important. Whether I can see that you're online or not, whether you catch it live or whether you catch it later, it doesn't matter. Go to the YouTube channel, do what you do, sign up, make a liar out of me. Good night, people. I am because of you.